So California is a part of the Mexican Cession of 1848. And in 1849, gold is going to be discovered in California in and around Sutter's Mill, which is close to where present day Sacramento is. This is a picture of Sutter's Mill. You'll notice that it's located near water. Mills were a place where you would use water to um, power things like saws to cut lumber and things like that. And so this mill had water next to it, and um, this is where um, gold was found in this river. What it creates is a massive amount of movement from the Midwest in the middle of the country to California. Here's a picture of Sutter's Mill. Like I said, it's near Sacramento. It's in the Sierra foothills on the way to um, Lake Tahoe from California in the north. So we know for sure that the gold discovery is going to kick off a massive amount of movement from east to west. Word is going to get out, and what's going to happen is that people are going to hear stories that may or may not be true. It's like a giant game of telephone. We start at one end of the classroom and we make our way and snake our way through the classroom. When we get to the end of the line, more often than not, the thing that is said is going to be um, different than what was started, different than what was said at the beginning. And this is true in California. The gold that was discovered at Sutter's Mill is not going to be something that's going to make many people super wealthy. However, people are enamored with precious metals, number one, and the idea and the hope of becoming wealthy is going to motivate people to want to discover gold too. Remember, it's the same time as other westward expansions, so the motivations remain the same. People want to move to a place where they can make money and become super wealthy. As a result of the um, discovery of gold, there are going to be people that move that don't want to discover gold but want to make money off of people who do. Those people are Wells Fargo, Ghirardelli Chocolate, and Levi Strauss in the top right. Wells Fargo, the bank, started in San Francisco. Ghirardelli Chocolate, also founded in San Francisco, as well as Levi Strauss Jeans, the main outfitter for many of the people who go and pan for gold in California. These are examples of things that emerge out of the gold rush that are not directly related to gold. Discovery, but are adjacent to it. So this is the life of a picture of the life of a gold miner. We're going to look at a couple of primary source documents over the next couple of days that will show us the life of a gold miner in California. You'll notice that it's not the most clean job. Gold panning occurs in water, so you'll see that people are wearing boots, almost like they're wearing waders into the middle of the river. They're going to direct water away from the river so that they can then use the water to move the soil around underneath them so that they can find gold. 300,000 people are going to move to California between 1848 and 1854. In 1850, California is going to meet the requirements to become a state. But the question of slavery comes up again. Should California be entered as a free state or a slave state? And what should they be entered in as to maintain balance in the Senate? California enters as either one of these, they're going to throw the balance of the Senate off. Slavery was not a thing in California. That's not to say that Californians were perfect, but slavery was outlawed there. Californians have a record of being terrible to immigrants coming from the Asian continent. So this does not exclude them from that. However, slavery was not a thing in California at the time. So they're going to ask to be entered in as a free state. What's going to be happening then is that the Compromise of 1850 will be signed. So Texas is going to be entered in as a slave state in 1848. California is going to be entered as a free state in 1850. However, Texas being entered as a slave state gets us pretty close to equal representation for balance in Congress. California entering, however, does not. California entering as a free state gives free states an upper hand in the Senate in terms of what they can pass. So Henry Clay, same Henry Clay that was responsible for the corrupt bargain and Andrew Jackson's presidency, as well as who runs for president against James K. Polk in 1844, is going to draft a compromise, and the compromise will enter Texas as a slave state, California as a free state, and then it's going to pass the Fugitive Slave Act, and an amendment to it that makes it more strict. The final thing that they do in the Compromise of 1850 is abolish the slave trade in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. The Fugitive Slave Act is going to be strengthened by the Compromise of 1850. It's going to be passed originally in 1793, and it's going to incentivize people to catch runaway slaves and return them to their owners. You'll notice that this law has existed for almost the entirety of the country's existence. George Washington will become president in 1788. So in 1793, while Washington is still president, this law will be passed in Congress. It's going to be strengthened in 1850, and it's going to incentivize people to turn in runaway slaves. The problem is that this is going to incentivize racist people living in the North to capture African Americans who have never been slaves and send them to the South to work in plantations and on plantations. Solely using and solely utilizing the color of the skin of the person, people will be falsely sold back into slavery, even if they had never been slaves in the first place. This is the nature of life in the North and in the South during this time. That's why I said in the very beginning that we want to make sure that we don't view the North as the good guys and the South as the bad guys, because there were good and bad people on both sides during this time period. So the most recent and in the 21st century depiction of this is Solomon Northup in 12 Years a Slave. He is going to be bought into slavery through the Fugitive Slave Act, even though he is not ever, having been previously a slave, will spend 12 years as a slave living in the South. Slavery had been outlawed in many different places around the world in the 19th century. We talked about this when we looked at Mexico during the Mexican-American War and Texas's independence. The United States had not, because of pressure brought on by Southern states to protect the institution. Plantation owners in the South desperately wanted to maintain slavery. There are two main reasons I would argue that they wanted to maintain the institution. The first and the most pervasive that will kind of continue on even after slavery is abolished is racism in the South. Racism exists in the South and in the North because many African Americans living in the North face the prejudice that many freed slaves in the South will face after Reconstruction ends in 1877. The second reason why they wanted to maintain slavery is because of economics. After making the initial purchase of a slave, Southern plantation owners would be able to utilize their labor for free and make a lot of money on top of it. So they wanted to maintain and protect this institution that benefited them. So for these two reasons, many people living in the South are going to want to secede from the Union so that they can maintain slavery. And I would argue it's because they viewed African Americans as less than them, and also because they were able to make a ton of money as a result of it. This is two of the main causes of the Civil War, and it's why these causes are going to be discussed in future lessons. Racism and economics exist both in the North and the South, and it's going to lead to tension between these two groups of people.